Good evening. It is 5:15 this Monday, March 28th, and this Carroll City Council is now in session. Would you please rise and join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have tonight's consent agenda as item number 3. I'll briefly go through them. It's rather lengthy, but I'll be brief. We have approval of minutes of last city council meeting on March 14th, approval of bills and claims. We've got 4 liquor permits. First one is a renewal Class C liquor license with Sunday sales for Carroll Moose. New 5-day Class C liquor license for Carroll Hy-Vee for the Kemper Ball. New Class C liquor license and special Class A beer permit with outdoor service, Sunday sales and catering for the Carroll Brewing Company. And then we also have one for the Carroll Merchants Baseball Club beer permit request. And that does include a resolution and a new 6-month Class B beer permit with outdoor service and Sunday sales as well. We also have appointments to committees and commissions and boards. We've got 3 of those tonight. We've got an appointment to the Civil Service Commission as well. And then we also have a FFA farm lease agreement, which includes a resolution on that. So unless there are any questions on tonight's consent agenda, I would seek a motion to approve it.
There's a mistake in the minutes. I just thought of this, got to call Laura on this. On the pickup, it has everybody passing, and then you also have Misty abstaining where it should be Kyle.
Okay.
Good
We will correct
catch.
And then on the bills, we had for Confluence on Phase 11. Did we have that where we weren't going to do anything with Phase 11 this year? I thought we talked about that in our budget.
Wasn't that for the 12? I'm sorry.
It was Phase 11.
It was, well, Phase 11.
Well, there's a bill here for Confluence for Phase 11. And I thought we weren't going to do anything with Phase 11 this year.
Yeah, which was in the 23 budget. So was this something, this would have to be something in the 22 budget.
Yeah, it would be something in the 22 budget.
Yeah,
I think it was
they have
design work.
continued to work a little bit on the project. We're planning the work session before, well, to decide how far to go, but it's currently budgeted, and I think it's budgeted to complete next fiscal year, the design work.
Yeah.
Only.
Okay.
But you're right. I thought it was the design work we were cutting out.
I thought it was everything we're cutting out.
I mean,
But this is what he's
It was
saying
in
is
the
on last year's
previous
budget.
okay,
That doesn't state that in the bills, so we don't know.
I
okay,
mean, we're still working on the 22 budget.
Yeah.
okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, we're in order for a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda. Is there one?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Seaman,
Yes.
Shrek.
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Dirks,
Yes.
Bordenaro,
Yes.
Base.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Very good. Item number 4 is oral requests and communications from the audience. This is on items that is not on tonight's agenda. Are there anyone that wants to approach the council tonight on anything that's not on the agenda? Anybody online? Hearing none, we will move to, there are no ordinances to approve tonight. On item number 6 is resolutions, and the first one is the Graham Park Drainage Ditch number 77 improvements. And Chad, do I turn that over to you, I believe?
Yep, absolutely. So on March 15th, bids for the Graham Park Drainage Ditch number 77 improvement project were received, opened and tabbed. 3 bids were received. The bid summaries are summarized in your packets. The lowest bid received was from Healy Excavating with a bid of $213,627. The total price for this project, including master plan and engineering, will total $285,727. Total revenue for this project is $352,800. Our recommendation to the council is for consideration of the resolution awarding the contract for the Grant Park Drainage Ditch number 77 improvements project to Healy Excavating at their bid price of $213,627.
627. Okay, very good. Any questions for Chad? Any clarification on any of that? Okay, so once again, he is recommending a consideration of the award of contract to Healy Excavating at their bid price of $213,627 for the Grant Park Drainage Ditch number 77 improvements. I'd seek a motion to approve that.
So moved.
There's been a motion and a second to approve the improvements. Again, the bid price at $213,627 to Healy Excavating. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Seaman,
Yes.
Bonero, Dirks,
Yes.
Base, Bauer,
Yes.
Trek. Resolution is approved.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, we will move to item 6B, which is the US 30 sanitary sewer extension. We have a report of the proposal opening and consideration of the award of contract. Is that Randy?
Yes,
Yep,
thank you,
thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor. On March 22nd, proposals were received for the US 30 sanitary sewer extension project. The bids were broken down between a base bid and an alternate bid. If you recall, the base bid extends the sanitary sewer along US 30 from Griffith Road east to the east property line of the Pelicorp, which is the west property line of Rezac property, Choice Auto. The alternate further extends that sewer through the Rezac Choice Auto property to their west property line, or a total of about 2,000 feet. 3 bids were received. Keller Excavating, Inc. provided the low bid for the base bid portion of the sewer, and King Construction provided the low bid for the combination of base bid and bid alternate. Both bids exceeded the engineer's estimate, the base bid by 24% and the base bid plus alternate by 28%. Total project cost is provided at $407,105 for the base bid, $614,580 for the base bid plus alternate. There is currently no funding in the budget, current budget for this project, but during preparation of the fiscal year 22-23 budget, a reestimate was provided in the amount of $530,000 for this project. So reestimated for the current fiscal year. That's in the budget preparation documents. It'll obviously require a budget amendment to be formally placed in. In addition to that funding, Jim Rezac has voluntarily offered to pay the city a connection charge to the sanitary sewer in the amount of $33,523.78. The project schedule includes construction completion by August 31st of this year. And so unless there are any questions, we'd recommend your consideration of passage of a resolution awarding the contract either to Keller Construction or Keller Excavating for the base bid, or King Construction for the base bid plus bid alternate.
Thank you, Randy.
You're welcome.
Well, you heard it. There's the recommendation there. Came in quite a bit higher than what was planned. Your thoughts, please.
How much more was this than the prior? Was this estimated a year ago or so?
Yes, it was actually August of last year.
What was the estimated cost of it then?
Now that was really a wag, but it was to the west line, which would be phase one, or excuse me, base bid, 150,000. And the base bid plus alternate, the 2,000 foot length, was at 225,000. That was actually based on prior received sanitary sewer pricing. Pricing has gone unbelievable in the last year.
Do they contribute that to material costs going up or labor costs? I mean, we're seeing it everywhere, but
Mhm.
they're seeing,
Well, the contractors primarily attribute it to material cost. But obviously, the labor situation has to have some impact on it.
So we're essentially charged with making a choice between just not accepting the bids and do nothing, which leaves RESAC in a bit of a lurch. Or we can approve just the west extension and or the east extension along with it.
Yes.
And I asked Mike earlier, we couldn't do, if you saw the bids, the west extension and the east extension each had a lower bidder,
Mhm.
but it has to be done at a package. Is that your understanding too?
It is my understanding, yes. Mhm.
Did the bidders say that a reason other than just Kyle's question, not to belabor it any longer, but did they run into any surprises in the design or the understanding of the design of service or anything like that from the engineer's estimate?
There was a little just verbal conversation about two different issues with this sewer. It's fairly straightforward, actually, but in the takeoff, the west 200 feet maybe, there are a lot of utilities to deal with in that right of way to get this pipe through those utilities. So we did have one potential bidder was reported that he did not submit his bid when he saw the utilities that were there. The other issue is there is a small area that is kind of a wet ditch, but it is by definition a wetland. So it has to be protected and avoided during the construction of the project.
Oh my. Okay.
So that increases their a contractor's hesitancy, to get into bidding this or get into constructing.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Randy, can you take me back to when we talked about this originally? Remind me, what was the agreement with RESAC as far as the piece or the portion that they are paying for it?
As I recall, it was pretty much a negotiated square footage cost or connection fee. The council has in by code connection fees on another one or two sewers in town. And I think they are at 5 cents a square foot. This one, I believe, was probably negotiated based on those earlier estimates of construction cost at 8 cents a square foot for the entire area of the Rezac property. So that's what it calculated out to the 33,000 plus.
Can you remind me, how did we come up with the 5 cents and the 8 cents?
The 5 cents, I believe, was close to the city's cost of that sewer. That was the Industrial Park Road sewer that was jointly constructed with the landfill, or the Solid Waste Management Commission. And the remaining value was about, I think it was about 5 cents a square foot for the property that it would serve. In this case, the 8 cents, I don't have anything written on it, but I believe it was calculated based on those earlier estimates. You know, by today's standard, that we know pricing, well, the pricing you have in hand, if that were extended to serve the entire watershed that this point could drain, the square foot price would be about 33 cents.
So we would have an opportunity to possibly change the dollar amount that, I
I'm-
don't remember, was there a written agreement or was this just conversation?
There's no written agreement. It was just negotiations between the city and Mr. Rezac. Certainly I think the city would, if the city wants to change that amount, certainly we could revisit it. The numbers came in substantially higher. I think you would want to engage a conversation with Mr. Rezac in particular, because if he would choose not to connect and we chose to go forward with this project, then obviously no one's going to connect. There'll be no revenue the city would receive for any part of it. So I would say, I did have a conversation with Mr. Rezac. He was unable to be here this evening, so he was not able to engage the council tonight. But that would be my recommendation. If the council wants to entertain changing that figure, we'd want to negotiate and have those discussions. And certainly the bids are still good for 30 days, correct? So we'd have time to engage in that type of process.
We shelf this and set up a meeting with them and find a later date.
You certainly could choose to do that, yes.
You know, originally when this first came up, this came up before I took office, and I was just out, you know, in the audience, and you know, I thought it was worthwhile doing, you know, economic development and, you know, go car dealers and all that stuff. But I mean, I just thought that it was a good idea and to try and extend that out there and make it available to them. But, you know, little did I think we'd be faced, you know, with it being 28% higher. And, you know, I still would remain in favor of it, you know, had it been within, you know, it's the design estimate. But needless to say, we and again, there's still another decision to be made, maybe not tonight if we do shelf it, but the second decision would be whether or not we extend it, you know, further east or not too. So I know there's some possibilities, you know, to be considering out there too. But yeah, I want to hear what everybody else's thoughts are as well. But I'd be certainly willing to sit in on any negotiations or do whatever.
You would be part of that.
Well, I'd sure like to be. And Matt, he's a super reasonable man, and what he's done out there is outstanding. Everybody can see that, and been quite a welcome addition to the community in Carroll, and a darn good competitor. So, any other thoughts?
No, if I'm understanding right, then if you want to enter into a new negotiation, then that means that we're looking at doing the base bid and alternate in order to meet Rezac's needs, correct?
You'd only have to do the west to, you know,
To get it
satisfy
to
him.
him.
Correct.
But if we wanted to extend it to his east side to have forward thinking. I mean, if we're seeing this happen, a 28% increase so quickly, in a year,
Sure.
I think we should use a little foresight and think long term. And for me, I really think, given the situation we found ourselves in, we really need to seriously consider the bid alternate and taking it farther east, because these might be the best numbers we ever get. And do we want to be in a situation down the road where, it's even higher? Prices aren't going to go down, I doubt.
Randy, and this will serve across the road, such as the ground that Farners has for sale for potential development as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, yes, they could bore across the highway to access the sewer. Mhm.
And the size of this line, is that constructed to go how far out eventually? Say potential growth? Is it country club wise? Is it a mile out past that? Just saying it's not under constructed 25
Right.
years from now if it grows out that far.
Well, it's limited to the current sewer size. Actually, the current sewer size is 10-inch that runs north and south along Griffith Road down to the treatment plant. So that's basically the outfall size for the area. This sewer, actually part of it has to be 12-inch because of the grades, but it's primarily 10-inch. And that would serve, of course, reasonable development within that 150-acre area. Now, there can always be a large water user or sewer user develop within that area, and that could put pressure on a line like this. But for the general use, like the use that's along the highway right now, it would serve that 150 acres, which extends out to the church out east of the country club. That's kind of the high point of the watershed. Everything west of there drains back west of the city.
Thoughts? Well, you got to worry about long term. Is this the lowest? It's a gamble you're going to take. Are you going to wait 30 days and not do it, and then you got to do it a year from now? Because you go past 30 days, are these contractors even going to have time this year? They're probably waiting on this one. If this doesn't go through, they're going to jump on something else. So there's a gamble.
Bids are good for 30 days, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so the recommendation that Randy was presenting hasn't changed, but, a third option would be is to table it for 2 weeks and maybe sit down with Mr. Rezac and see if we could soften the punch a little bit. You pretty cool with that?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Any other thoughts?
Yes.
Well, my thought is, given the total cost, he's kicking in $34,000. Given the total cost, I thought he was generous to consider that, and he did it very rapidly. And I think anything that, if we negotiate with him and any amount he wants to add, is really considering the total cost, not going to make much difference. And I mean,
You're right.
we're short $80-some thousand to do the whole thing with the bid alternate. And he's already decided to kick in $34,000. I mean, I just see that given the total cost, it's more important to do this than, to weigh it on maybe a few thousand more. It's too important to do and say, oh, we're not going to do it because he won't do this or that or the other thing. It's to me a small amount of the total, and I see it as something good for this side of the city, thinking long term. I'm really good with where he's at.
Is this sewer fund?
Yes, it is.
Mhm.
I feel if we don't move ahead with this, it could tie our hands later on if somebody's looking at doing something out that way as well.
Yeah,
So
I do. It's amazing to me how quickly, inflation is impacting our projects. And that's why this needs to get done, as Kyle said, to think long-term.
We're talking about,
Yeah,
that's sold
the Farner land.
yeah,
So
yeah.
to a developer.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think we have to be progressive and get this thing going if we want to draw businesses and people here. He's obviously taken a large financial investment already out there doing what he has done. So.
Yeah.
Well, we have some opinions on it. I'd seek a motion.
I'll make a
if you
motion
wanna move
to-
forward with it, and which option you would prefer.
King Construction with the base bid plus the alternate.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to move ahead with the project with King Construction for a total bid price of $569,520.25. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Dirks,
Yes.
Bordenero, Bauer,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes,
Shrek.
Yes.
Base.
Yes.
Resolution is approved.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, we will move to item 6C, which is a street restoration project. And I think I'll open the public hearing here first. I have 543, Laura, and I will open the public hearing on proposed plans, specifications, form and contract, and estimated costs and consideration of adoption of plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimated costs with the associated resolution. And Randy, I'll keep you on cue.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the street restoration 2022 project have been submitted. The plans detail primarily full-depth concrete patching on 6 different segments of streets. Segment on North Main, Parkview, Peeble Lane, Randall Road, Vine Street, and West 21st Street. The specifications are the statewide urban standard with the Carroll supplemental spec. The form of contract is the statewide urban design and specification unit price contract. And the estimated cost of the work is $750,000 construction cost. With that construction cost, a total project cost would currently be estimated at about $805,000. The funding for the project had been previously identified through a series of about 5 different sources or 4 different sources to be $950,000 total. Since the delay in the Adams Street project, there will be funding available in next year's budget in the amount of approximately $350,000 as a debt payment. That would be available for this project. So with that in mind, once the bids are received, a little bit firmer pricing will return to you with a revised funding projection for this project. Currently, the bids are scheduled to be received April 19th with your consideration on April 25th and construction completion during the calendar year 2022 by November 15th. So unless there are any questions, I'd recommend your consideration of passage and approval of the resolution, adopting the plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost for the street restoration project.
Very good. Any questions for Randy? Any comments? Have we received any comments, City Hall? Any comments from those in attendance?
Yeah. We live on 11.
You want to approach you mind approaching, please? Name and address, please.
We live on 11th.
Name and
Vine.
address, please.
Pardon?
Name and address, please.
Michelle Davidson.
Perfect.
603 East 11th.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, we live on 11th and Vine. Now, we know Vine Street, there's 3 houses that have the driveways to on Vine Street. We also know that when the water park opens up, you've got down below the parking fills, and you have got 11th Street, where all the cars are. You've got the swimming meets, and with that open, so they also park up on Vine. Do you have any idea when you're planning on doing this, so we know what we're doing?
Well, the timeline again is the bid opening would, or they're due on the 19th in the opening. And then the council, the soonest we could act on it would be April 25th. And then construction completion is estimated for November 15th of this year. So one would assume they would, start on it. Well, what section comes first, or can you add a little bit more detail on that, or what your understanding might be or preference?
Well, it actually, once it's let, it's within the contractor's scheduling. The city can have some influence on that if we need to avoid, anything in particular. But we generally, actually, it becomes a contractor schedule at that point.
Well, what happens when the water park opens up and they have everything going on?
Well, that's, I don't know if we could delay it through the entire season for the aquatic center. That gets us pretty late in the year. And that would significantly influence the contractor's schedule, restrict his schedule. But we will know more once we get a contract and a contractor
So
under contract.
nothing will happen until April 19th?
Oh, no, it will not. Actually, it's after the 25th, April 25th, when the council considers it. If they award, then a contract will be initiated, and that usually takes 30 days to get that started at a minimum.
So by the time Memorial Day hits, they will not have anything done yet.
In all practicality, no, they will not. Now, I don't know for certain, but that's what it appears.
And swim meets are over by mid-July, like the July 15th is swim is over, summer swim's over.
Do you have any idea how long it takes to do just that strip?
On Vine Street?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would anticipate they would do it in 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Mhm.
Okay.
But that's, it's entirely contractor's schedule, but, we can certainly work with them to see what can be done, as best we can.
Yeah. A lot goes on when that water park opens.
Mhm. Okay.
This is, they take up 11th and Vine parking.
Mhm.
So, thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you too. Yeah, it's been often said that there's only 2 seasons in Iowa, construction and winter, and unfortunately those 2 will overlap over, the swim season. So we appreciate your concerns, and please trust and assure that city staff will do all that they can to make those accommodations as palatable as possible. But thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Any comments from you before we close? Well, I show 5:50, and we will close the public hearing on this. And you heard Randy's recommendation to approve and pass the resolution adopting the plan specifications, form, and contract for the estimated costs of the 2022 street restoration project. Is there a motion to that effect?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Shrek?
Yes.
Dirks?
Yes.
Base?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Bornero?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Resolution is approved.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move to item 6D, which is a water system preliminary engineering report. Once again,
Thank you.
yeah, that's right.
The Department of Natural Resources has issued a revision to the city's public water supply operation permit. And part of that revision includes the submittal requirement for the submittal of a preliminary engineering report that addresses some low chlorine residuals in the system in the northeast part of the city. That report is to be submitted along with a compliance schedule by December 31st of 2022. We have requested or worked with JEO Consulting Group to prepare engineering services agreement to review the current system, the treatment and the chlorination within the current operation, and recommend any changes that would potentially positively affect the chlorine residual within the system, primarily in the northeast part of the city, but actually the entire city will be included in the review and analysis. The lump sum fee for the report preparation is $25,700. And the completion of the report is projected to be 180 days from notice to proceed. And that would put the council in a good position to submit the report timely to the DNR. So unless there are any questions, I'd recommend consideration of the resolution approving the agreement with JEO Consulting Group for the preliminary engineering report in the amount of $25,700.
Very good. Thank you, Randy. It was brought up earlier, just in conversation, that it's possible that this type of situation could arise at other parts of the city in the future, that this particular area is not necessarily, what's my word, but immune to issues like this that other parts of the city could.
There are some other parts of the city that have low chlorine residuals. That's why we want to include the entire city in this review, and whatever solution is proposed, that it would affect the entire city.
Okay.
The DNR kind of is concentrating on the northeast part of town. That actually is stated in the permit revision, but I think we believe for the benefit of the entire city, it should be reviewed comprehensively.
Okay. It's good to know. Okay, any other questions for Randy about this? Well, then you heard his recommendation. He's requesting approval of a resolution approving the agreement with JEO for a water system preliminary engineering report for $25,700. Is there a motion to that effect? Moved and seconded. Moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Seaman?
Yes.
Base?
Yes.
Shrek? Bornero?
Yes.
Dirks?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Resolution is approved.
Very good, thank you. Item number 6E is a minor subdivision, Lot 3 of the Northwest 1/4. These are fun to read, by the way. 1/4 of the Southwest 1/4 of Section 11, Township 84 North, Range 35 West of the 5th PM Prime Meridian, Carroll County, Iowa. Plat resolution. This is north of Carroll. And Mike, you want to take it from here? This is within our 2-mile limit.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Mike Schultes has presented this request on behalf of Gerald and Alice Baumhomer, trustees for the Baumhomer Family Revocable Trust. This is a subdivision located on the east side of Kitty Hawk between 170th and 180th Street. This property is outside the corporate limits of the city. However, it's within our 2-mile review area. And there's a map here that shows the location of that. It's about 1.5 miles north of Quant's Auto Salvage on Kitty Hawk. This property is identified in the 2013 comprehensive plan as agricultural and is zoned A2 agricultural district by the city. If you go to the next slide, please. This shows the proposed parcel. It's a single family lot of 5 acres in size. It meets our minimum requirements for a single family residential home, which they're proposing to build. There'll be no new city right of way or utilities proposed as part of this. It would be served by West Central Rural Water and septic for sanitary sewer use. With that, I would note that the Planning and Zoning Commission did review this request and did recommend approval. Staff too is recommending approval of this minor subdivision. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the council has this evening.
I have none. I've been over it a couple of times, so. Anything from the council? Once again, you heard his recommendation would be, as the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended as well, is that we recommend the resolution for the new plat. Is there a motion to that effect?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to approve the plat resolution as read. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Dirks,
Yes.
Bordenero, Shrek,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Base.
Yes.
Resolution is approved.
Very good, thank you. We move to item number 7. We have 2 reports. The first one is a heavy-duty truck purchase. And Randy, I'll initially turn it over to you, and I know we have a representative here as well. So plenty of questions on this one. So you want to go ahead and take it from here?
Sure, you bet. Thank you. Following your approval on February 14th of the purchase of a heavy-duty truck from O'Halloran International, they did contact the city to advise that there had been an inadvertent application of the manufacturer's discount on their price proposal. And that resulted in an increase in the cost of the truck that they had previously quoted. I've summarized what was approved on the 14th and what the February 28th notification consisted of. And Ryan Burkowski from O'Halloran is here tonight to explain the pricing difference.
Good evening, everyone.
Thanks for being here again, Ryan.
Sure, not a problem. Through Sourcewell, which is the bidding solution or buying solution that this truck was bid, it is a pre-negotiated profit, pre-negotiated state bid, so to speak, that used to be NJPA. When working through that worksheet, I myself inadvertently missed a number. That number resulting in a $15,000 change. Basically what that did was that gave the city double discount. Sourcewell does allow for an 8.4% discount over normal program. By forgetting that number, that almost doubled. And that was my fault. This is 100% on me. What I'm asking the city to do is to award that truck for $181,966. With that, we have increased the trade terms on the truck. They will be trading in $2,000, and we would ask for the $181,966. With that, we will also grant the city $3,000 of in-store credit to be used however you choose, parts, labor, service, whatever the truck shops would need. Like I said, this was not a Sourcewell admission. This was a salesman inadvertent admission, and that's why I'm here tonight.
Want to go over those numbers again because that's different than what we have here.
Okay. The truck itself is a with with Hawkeye truck equipment being hung on for snow and so forth, $224,966. We are allotting a $43,000 trade allowance that has been upped from original. That comes to $181,966 for the actual price. And then we would also put in a $3,000 in-store service or in-store credit at O'Halloran for however the city would choose to use it.
Did you prepare a second resolution for the council to approve, should that be their wishes, at the revised figure of the 181? Were you able to do that? Or
The
would we just-
approval is actually by motion, and we have prepared a second purchase order
Okay,
verifying the order or the council's approval of the order.
okay.
Mhm.
So should the council choose, we'd be ready to move on it at the revised price.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions for?
This will lock in all the add-ons as well.
As far as we can tell, yes. Through Sourcewell, through that buying group, they have a hard time adding on any surcharges or anything like that. We don't expect to see surcharges on this truck at this time.
And this is something that we could pay for now to lock the price
The-
of the add-ons.
Yes, I think the former action of the council included paying a Hawkeye truck who wasn't sure if there would be a upcharge or not later on, initiate the purchase order immediately with Hawkeye truck. Once they received their equipment, the city would pay for it. And then they would inventory it at their location until it was attached to the chassis.
What's the timeline on seeing this? I know it's,
Timeline on trucks right now, to be honest with you, is 18 to 24 months on a heavy-duty chassis.
Wow.
how many price increases have you seen on these over the last 6 months?
Over the last 6 months, I've seen 5 price increases. Normally, we have one at the beginning of the year, one at the middle of the year. We've seen 5 price increases. We've seen lots of surcharges take hold. So just as you discussed in your other projects, we have seen inflation come up quite fast as well.
But if we issue a purchase order with you today, that does guarantee the price 1 or 2 years from now on the chassis?
That guarantees the price subject to additional surcharges
On the chassis,
on the chassis alone.
but we could be subject to additional surcharges?
Potentially, they would have
We
to
didn't
be.
discuss that earlier today.
They would have to be approved by Sourcewell.
Okay.
So Sourcewell negotiates this with International for different states in the United States. So I have the Iowa numbers here. But in order for Navistar or International Truck to assess more of a surcharge, it would have to go through the powers at Sourcewell.
Is there a comparable in stock, in inventory, in the pipe?
No. No, there's not.
Okay, that does change things a little bit. Okay, well, it's council's wishes.
Those 5 increases that you just had, what percentage was an increase from before the 5?
Normally, before the 5, I'd see about a 2% at the beginning of the year and about 1% in the middle of the year. Over the last 12 to 18 months, we've seen increases go up 8% at a time.
Remind me, replacing one that we have that's going bad, or was this just in a rotation? It was just time, or where are we at?
Well, the truck it's replacing is 17 years old. We don't have a set rotation schedule on them. What we try to do is look every year to see if we believe it should be moved out. And this one has, we don't have high mileage trucks. This is just over 60,000 miles, but 5,800 hours on the engine. So it's at the point where it needs to be replaced soon. And apparently it won't be for another 2 years possibly, even if the action is done tonight. So it's in the schedule to get done. One of the things we've talked about before, we push everything as far as we can push it. And most of the time, it works out okay. Now, we had a truck recently that the last year of ownership, it cost thousands of dollars to keep it running. Now, it probably should have been traded a year earlier. Hindsight's real good. But the other thing we consider is all of the equipment being considered so that we don't bunch up buying 2 trucks in a year or a truck and a motor grader or a truck and a backhoe. We try to also work that out in a schedule of replacement. So you try to balance everything. And this one, the balance just came down to we should get started on replacement for it, was a recommendation.
Been over 45 years since I was in, doing medium duty stuff, but light duty stuff has historically been price protected. Once you solidify the order, the price may go up, but the dealer gets reimbursed for that. What has changed?
The price is guaranteed. It would be if there was a good surcharge due to steel, copper, things like that on the truck.
On the chassis.
On the chassis portion.
It can still go, so it's not price protected. Wow.
Numbers you just gave us, we could have a 40% increase.
I don't think you'll see that. From what I'm told, we're not expecting an increase in the source well.
I'm going to pick on you, Kyle. We just approved a streets truck, or Parks truck, I think, or it was a water truck, I think it was. But anyways, a pickup, that's price protected.
Correct.
We didn't even have the conversation.
Yep. And I've seen, there's been increases, you'll see from one month to the next, you're talking a $60,000 truck, you'll see $1,200 to $1,500 increases from one month to the next.
Yeah, I can see the increases, but okay.
So how does it work if this truck comes in $20,000 more? Not saying that it would. Obviously, then things might change a little bit.
If we were to see an increase through a good surcharge, would be the only way that would increase. I would, of course, notify Randy right away. At that point, the council would have the option to either accept or completely walk away.
I guess, is there an option to say, we'll forgive that $3,000 in-store credit if we're guaranteed that price?
I don't have the ability to do that, no.
Okay. Randy, how old is the next truck that's going to be replaced?
I have that information, but I do not have it in
Yeah.
hand. Sorry.
But you review it annually, so we
We do.
could certainly have, this one's 17 years old, we could quite possibly have one that's 16 years old, couldn't we?
Well,
We get the good out of them.
Yeah.
There's nobody questioning that.
No,
It's
that's,
just-
we trade trucks maybe every 3 years on an average.
Okay.
Because we've got 6 trucks and this one's 17 years old. So
Right.
it's been about every 3 years. And in the intervening times, of course, you've got skid loaders and backhoes and motor graders and wheel loaders to work in there too, to finance or to pay for. But generally that would be about it. So I would, without having the information in hand, probably in that 14, 15 year range.
So to be clear on this, if we okayed it for this price, 2 years from now, this thing's like 40% more, we can back out, you said.
Absolutely.
But prior to it being built, right? I mean, it's at
Yes,
any point. Okay.
yes,
Whenever you present us with the new price, we'd have the opportunity to walk away.
absolutely.
It kind of,
Kind of freeze your hands up a little bit.
yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
The bad thing's gonna be is, it's gonna be pricey no matter what then.
Yeah.
You probably are gonna need a truck, so.
yeah, I mean, it's,
Then what's
Yeah,
our
there's
plan
that.
B if
I
it's,
don't-
you know,
yeah, there's no
if,
plan B.
what with an
Right.
old truck? What's our plan B that will be better than this deal?
well, I appreciate the time you gave me today and appreciate you
you.
being here. And,
And these bids are good for 30 days.
Absolutely.
Is there a way to know if we forgave that $3,000 in-store credit, if that would lock in the price?
That would be a question that I wasn't prepared to answer, so I would have to make a phone call on that.
Okay.
And I can find that out and report back to Randy if you'd like.
That's how I feel personally on it, just to kind of have a peace of mind. And then we still have something locked in to get things moving. I don't know how everybody else feels, but
yeah, I'm glad this doesn't come up very often because it's really a unique and very abnormal occurrence that, you know, we strike a deal and, you know, we assume the deal stays as stated. So, I mean, this is a really, a real challenge. So, is there a motion here? I mean, it's still a motion-based issue. Is there a motion to take an action either to approve or to table it or to deny it? I guess would be an option too.
Can I just ask one more question?
Of course.
The Sourcewell thing is new for me. I mean, I know we've talked about it and maybe used it a couple different times since I've been on here, and that's been a while. So I'm just curious, because it's been a while since we talked about this. Is there another way to bid this truck not through Sourcewell that maybe we should have done? Or I don't remember why we chose Sourcewell or whatever.
Well, wasn't it because we waived the bidding, the
That's what I
policy?
had assumed that
Yeah.
I wanted.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I thought you were
Yeah,
talking to me.
We ultimately chose Sourcewell in part because we felt we would be able to get better pricing. The alternative is we could go through a competitive bid process, and there's vendors out there that sell these trucks, and so we could go through a process and seek competitive bids. That would be an alternative that you can consider. You know, unlike a construction project where we get like a bid bond, typically a product like this, we would not get a bond guaranteeing that price. And they can simply walk away and say, you know, well, even though this was our bid, you're going to pay us this now when the product shows up. And unfortunately, we've had that happen in the Parks Department recently with just a small trailer. If I recall right, it was $7,000 initially was the bid last April. When it showed up
By the
here.
time it was built and it showed up, it was like 86.
Yep.
85.
And we're like, well, wait a minute, this is the business. We have 20 people that want trailers. You're going to pay this or not get the trailer. I mean, we had no negotiation. And you know, one question I'd ask you, I mean, if we went out to a competitive bid process and said, okay, give us your best price, are you going to guarantee the price even through that process in this
It's
climate?
virtually going to be guaranteed or somewhat guaranteed the same way. If you were to go out through a competitive bid, if I was invited to bid through that, I would bid the same price because I would bid it through Sourcewell because that's where I can get the best bang for the buck. That's where I can get the best pricing for the city of Carroll.
That's what Sourcewell was set up for that purpose.
We have the same problem that, so we checked with the other local truck vendor and they did not want to supply a price because they didn't have availability through this year or next year. So exactly, the alternative was to go to competitive bidding, which we've done in the past. We've also received in the past a bid from out of town. And it did not award it. I mean, in O'Halloran's defense, they're very good at service for the city. So we, you know, they've served the city very well. So there's no complaint there. We have not purchased from the other in-town vendor. They more recently started making this size of truck chassis, and we have not had the opportunity to bid it yet. But I'm sure, you know, they're very good at service also.
This is a brave new world. Sure glad I hung up my cleats. I couldn't go back to people and ask them for more money, I don't think, but
It's been a fun 18 months.
I mean, it's you know, I don't like it. But I'm with some of you that have said, you know, we're only kicking the can, and like anything else, it could be, you know, more later. You know, if I knew we could guarantee that, you know, lock in the price at least on that chassis and then do what we've talked about on the body, you know, then that would lock it in. Then I'd go along with the additional, you know, $13,000 or so. But what are the council's wishes?
Is there a threshold, like, Kyle, you asked, could we get out of this if it came in at 20% over? Is that the threshold, or if it came, you know, if it was increased by 15% or whatever?
If it was increased by 1% and the council decided to walk away from it, they would have
Okay,
that
so it wasn't a threshold at 20% then?
option. Just as Mark stated with the trailer, or maybe it was Mike stated with
Okay.
the trailer, we would be in the same boat. You know, if you folks walked away from it, we would simply sell it to the next guy.
Okay, well,
And it still puts us
that
in the
gives
same
us
boat, you know.
flexibility.
You know, we're still needing a truck.
Yeah, if that's the case, I good with jumping on this and moving ahead.
Is there a motion to that effect?
I'll make that motion to accept, and it was what, for 181,966, not the 183,966 in our memo,
Correct.
correct? Thank you.
Plus the $3,000 credit.
Plus the
Plus
three,
the
thank you.
$3,000 credit.
Okay, thanks, Laverne. Okay. Any,
I would like to have the option to know if we forgave that $3,000 credit, if it locked that price in.
And that's something that I can potentially find out for you tomorrow during business hours.
Yep.
But I don't have that ability to say that
Yeah.
at this time.
You have nothing to lose.
no, it's three.
I'm okay with Kyle's.
Uh,
Uh,
I mean, if it's not available, then we still have an option next
Right.
meeting to,
Right where we're at right now.
yeah.
Okay, so there was a motion and a second, was there not?
Yes.
There was a motion and a second.
Well, I didn't hear the second.
I
Yeah,
didn't.
Tom.
Oh, there was.
Mhm.
Okay.
It still gives us an option to back out if it's too high, so either way.
Yeah.
To Kyle's point, whether it says it's 3,000 or doesn't say this, it's still an option to say no.
So again, just to clarify, the motion and the second is for the 181,966 with the $3,000 store credit.
Right. But
So
But
as
Kyle-
presented,
Kyle's going after a locked-in number.
yeah, yeah,
So, so just to clarify, if this is turned down, we come back, we hear yes or no if that's available. And it's a no, is there a chance to go ahead with this proposed purchase the way it is now?
So he just said yes.
Okay.
Okay, so once again, we have a motion and a second. We got a motion still out there for the 181,966. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Bauer,
No.
Shrek,
Yes.
Seaman,
yes,
Dirks,
No.
Yes.
Base, Ordinary.
Yes.
4-2, motion is approved.
Thanks again, Rhino.
Thank you.
Good seeing you again. Okay, moving right along at lightning speed, we have reports 7B, and this is a voluntary dental insurance offering. And is that Mike?
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mark and council. The council and the city have been considering offering a dental insurance to our employees. Now, this would be a voluntary dental insurance, and it's been something that has been asked for by our employees. In fact, last fall, the city did update its personnel policy to include language that the city may offer a voluntary dental insurance policy that would be 100% paid for by the employees through payroll deduction. Other than minor administrative burdens, there really would be no cost for the city to offer this benefit. Now, with our upcoming health insurance open enrollment period in June, the city would like time to or begin reviewing and getting rates for a proposed policy. Now, we did get rates from both Delta Dental and Wellmark Blue Cross Blue Shield. This was last summer, and they were included in your packet. Prior to soliciting offers for final rates and potential contract with the dental carrier, staff is seeking just input from the council if this is a direction you still want us to go to offer this voluntary dental insurance. We do think it would allow us to be more competitive in the market, offer another benefit that we can market as we're trying to hire employees. So we just asked the council review and provide direction on consideration of offering this voluntary dental insurance to our city employees. Be happy to answer any questions the council has this evening.
And did you mention benefit source or in this, or that's your intention is to go
Yes.
through benefit
Correct.
source and
Good point. So Benefit Source, they do all of our benefit, health insurance benefits, and some of our other ancillary benefits, including our flexible spending, daycare flex options. So we continue to use them as we seek proposals for this.
I told Mike I was way good with it.
Well,
when
it's
we-
100% by
Yeah.
employee.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, not going to be
Why not?
borne
It's
by.
a good thing.
So I think the general consensus, I don't know, I don't think you need
We
necessarily
don't
a
need a
motion on
motion,
that.
but we just want to reaffirm, because
just-
I know there was some discussion about it previously, and we just want to make sure council is okay with
Full speed
proceeding.
ahead.
I'm good.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
good.
I would just, I don't know. I guess I'm not 100% on board with this. I don't know. I just did some checking today on privatized dental insurance, and some of that was cheaper. You can go private. I mean, not only that, there are employees within our city that utilize state insurance for their kids right now at a $15 a month, I think. And that could potentially take some of that away if the city determines to provide voluntary dental insurance.
That they would lose it?
Potentially.
Really?
I'm not aware of that, but I guess I would need to know more about what they have.
I only did a small little bit of checking over the noon hours. So, but it was a concern that was brought that there's potential that they could lose their privatized insurance if the city starts to offer it. And I guess the concern was then the 100% paid by the employee at between $75 and $88 a month was concerning to some.
Yeah, and certainly it just depends on, there's a lot of questions when you look at dental insurance of what is it covering at what rates? Do you have orthodontic? Do you not have orthodontic? And certainly if we continue looking at it, we'll get additional information on what those plans look like. Debbie Dean from Benefit Source would come before council and talk about it. So this certainly wouldn't lock us into one option, but to your point of, I'm not aware that someone would lose an option to have like a private carrier or other options out there. So certainly, if there's a unique issue, we'd like to know that and understand it. We can work with Debbie Dean to understand more about it. But certainly, we've had a number of employees. We only started looking at it because we actually had employees approach the city wanting us to offer. I know our last open enrollment, it was something that was discussed by a number of employees wanting the city to offer. So that's simply why we moved down this road.
Have we ever considered, 100% paid by the employee, that's not really that. Have we ever considered like paying a portion of that?
Well, certainly that would be a council decision. That would have a cost to the city to do that. I know in the past the city has not wanted to offer any employee pay or employer sponsored paid for dental insurance coverage. In fact, we had union negotiations previously that kind of came up through that, and the council did not want to exercise at that point. But certainly, if the council wants to do that, certainly it would be a benefit that would make us more competitive, kind of in that market.
Are you saying that just because it's available, they can't choose to stay on their personal card values?
There are programs that there are people that utilize for their children that it may not make those programs available anymore.
Just because something else is offered to them?
Yes,
Even if they choose not to take it?
correct.
Yeah, I'm unfamiliar with that too.
That's,
And we can have a conversation with Debbie Dean. She'd be more familiar with that kind of marketplace issue. So we'll reach out to Debbie too and discuss that with her.
Yeah, thanks for raising the question. I certainly wasn't aware of that. But make note of it.
So the direction tonight was just to have Mike proceed.
Correct.
And he can use your information.
Okay, committee reports, comments from the mayor. I have none. Comments from the city council? There is none. Comments from the city manager?
I have none.
He has none. I'm gonna give you plenty of opportunity here in just a moment. We're gonna move the regular city council agenda is complete, but we're not closing because we're gonna finish with a work session discussion on housing. And I know many of you are here and interested in it and appreciate your being here as well. And Mike has a PowerPoint of which he's going to go over, and not to steal any thunder, but essentially he's just going to be able to illustrate for us what our current situation is, a little bit of our history, a little bit of what's being done in other communities, and just having open dialogue. There are plenty of people here that are interested as well. And welcome to comment when that opportunity arises, as certainly a vibrant conversation among the council, so that we have some direction as far as what role Carroll City government should play in the housing shortage here in Carroll. So Mike, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mark, and council, and to the public. And I've given this presentation a few times to different groups looking around. A number of you have been in those conversations. Some of you have not. I'm going to go through, this presentation was in the council packet, so I'm going to go through some of this stuff rather quickly. One of the things I would ask, if you have a question or comment, council, the public, interject, ask it right then. We don't have to recircle. So I may answer. I'm going to cover that in a little bit. But hopefully we can get through this really closely or very quickly. I'm going to start out really just talking about where we're at. I think most people know that. And then I'm going to talk about what the city's done in different incentives, what other communities have done, and really then hopefully get into a dialogue of some direction. As we know, our housing availability, we're in historical lows. Interesting enough, Des Moines Building Association just announced, they had just over, the Des Moines Real Estate Association announced there's 7,000 homes on the market in Des Moines. That's nearly 14,000 less than a year earlier. And housing prices are up 4.5%. Constructions, cities are building all-time record in Des Moines Metro. They ended the year at 3,704 single-family building permits issued in the metro area. That compares to an all-time high of 3,996 homes that were built in the same region. And that was really, thank you, interesting too, because that was the second, this puts 2021 at the second most built homes in the metro area. And you see the availability of housing is down from a year earlier. And there really is a limited there's a worker shortage, material shortage, a skilled labor shortage. These are the issues that every community is facing. We're not unique in this. And we're just seeing continued records being built. Several communities had records. State of our housing, I always talk about in 2016, when I first moved here, Carroll County, through CADC, I see some members here. They did the Carroll County housing study. In it, it really talks about to have a healthy marketplace, you need to have 5 to 7% of your housing stock on and available for market. That number very clearly, and that was considered crisis level back then, and that represented about 1.9% of our total owner-occupied housing in the city of Carroll. A year ago, we had 10 homes on the market, 0.3%. In November, we had 16 homes, up a little bit. March 24th, so there was 8 houses on the market. That's 0.2% on the market. Now, this is on the multiple listing service. There's also for sale by owner, and I have some numbers here, but this shows you what's available on the market as of last Thursday. And you can see the most expensive list price of a home was $165,000. And the other thing that you really see is compared to assessed value, the listing values are way over the assessed value, quite substantially. As of today, there's actually 5 markets or 5 homes that I could find for sale by owner. This one was really through Zillow. I've looked at Trulia, some other sources that were out there. Again, what's even stark here is the price difference compared to the assessed value is even more substantial than what you see listed on a multiple listing service in Carroll by a real estate professional. House sales, we actually seen 304 houses sold in Carroll, the city of Carroll, in 2021. This is according to the Carroll County assessor. And what you really see is a marked difference in the assessed value from what's being sold. And interesting enough, you actually had 83 houses that's sold below their assessed value, or 221 above their assessed value. 82 or about a quarter of the homes were sold over 20% over their assessed value. So a lot of houses are going way more than what they're assessed. And by code, the assessed value is supposed to be between 95 and 105% of their actual sale amount. So this will likely put pressure on the assessor to raise property values for assessment purposes in the future, because clearly the market is selling way above what the assessed values are. Building permit history, everyone knows the building permit numbers are down. Now, we did change, and you'll see if you receive our building permit reports, I know a few of you do, we've now broke them down to within the city corporate limits and within our 2-mile area. So this is a reflection of that. But in last year we had 2 single-family homes, 14 multifamily, for a total of 16 units. Total numbers are up. But certainly we've moved to more multifamily, and multifamily in this is anything above single family: duplex, triplex, fourplexes, for sale by owner or owner occupied or rental. I believe there's only 4 rental units in this multifamily mix. The rest are duplexes that are owner occupied. But the numbers are down, and if you go back and even look at previous decades, we were building 20, 30, 40 homes a year in previous years and decades. The numbers have softened. One thing that, interesting enough, is if you really look at the residential remodels, they're up, and they did go down a little bit, but that, I think you're also seeing kind of a shift between people investing in their homes, and I think that's where you've seen, as I talk to contractors, really they have moved into that rehab market versus the new construction market. But we're also losing people in the community that are doing that work.
I got a question on the state code. We're way off on that margin. How fast does that have to be done? Do you know that? How many years or time
So
frame?
the county assessor does their work every cycle. We just went through that process, so it'd be about a year and a half before we would see any marked difference. Now, that also will
move it, that whole amount in 1 year, one time?
It's limited to 2%. That's the
That's the
equalization.
rollback.
That's the
That's the
equalization.
rollback.
Yeah.
But no, it's not limited.
Right, definitely.
And
Right.
in fact, when you get the, I'm blanking order from the state.
Equalization.
Equalization. I mean, we've seen equalization orders that have been 9, 10, 20%. They'll move it whatever it needs to move to meet the market. Now, when we've seen big changes in assessed values, that doesn't mean property taxes are going to go up per se, because we've lowered our levy rate. Because again, taxation is a component of your levy rate and your assessed value. And so assessed value goes up, we've lowered our levy rate historically. And then, like I noted, we have broke out now the houses within 2 mile, and you can see people have, in 2020 there were no houses built. This year, or in 2021, 5 houses built within the 2 mile area of the city of Carroll. Looking back again at the housing study done by CADC, May of 2016 when it originally came out, it identified basically 45 units that needed to be built per year in the city of Carroll. The last time we actually hit that number was in 1999. So we have not consistently done that. In the past 6 years, really from 2016 to 2021, we've built about a third of the number of units that the housing study had identified that we needed in the city of Carroll. So we've fallen behind in that regard. That was updated in 2021. They did lower the number down to 39 units per year between 2020 and 2030. Now the cautionary note is our census number, the housing study really based the work on the Census Bureau estimate of 9,935 people. When in actuality, when the census came out, we had 10,321. So that actually, if you add that in, that adds another 169 housing units we need on top of that 39, or 16 units per year. So again, while that lowered in the update after June of 2021, census numbers came out in August of 2021. So we know we were off the mark there. Again, going through kind of the issue, lots, we continue to have a lot of lot availability. We did update these for what's available. There were 2 lots that recently sold, so there's fewer lots in the Oak area. So there's really about 3 lots that are available. I believe one builder owns all those. I would suspect they'd build on those. Rolling Hills South, no change in availability. There's still 13 lots available now. There's 23 lots that we suspect the developer will work on here in the near future, but there's no change there. Northridge, there's 1 lot that is going to be constructed on from what we had reported last year. And then in Timber Creek area and Timber Creek West, lots up here that were available have sold now. Building plans are coming in, so we suspect that those will build out. And then Timber Creek East, there was 1 lot that has sold from a year ago. So when you look overall, there are 68 lots that are available, 9 lots that are unavailable, that are kind of vacant, like an adjacent property owner owns it, 31 lots that are owned by individuals, so we say kind of unknown, they just haven't built on them yet, 23 lots to be developed on, and there are 10 lots of infill available. So the availability of lots is out there. They're available to be built on. They haven't. Now that could be contractor constraints. It could be people just waiting for pricing, or just personal decisions. For whatever reason, there are lots out there that just haven't moved on. Mix, and I've always talked about, is our housing mix right? And I've talked about this a little bit. And in Carroll, you'll see again our single family year to year, what we've built. We've been predominantly single family. Now that's shifted in 2020 and 2021 a little bit. It could be because our single family home numbers are down overall compared to previous years, but that's shifted. But still, 71% 28% of our homes during that 2015 to 21 have been single family. Multifamily represents 28.28%. I went through, picked some cities, some Des Moines Metro, and originally when I first gave this presentation, I showed Ankeny, Johnson, West Des Moines, wanted some metro cities. Pella and Grinnell and Carroll were the other cities that I had chosen. And again, really showed Carroll was the outlier of predominantly being single family. Got criticized again, no, that's not the right cities, and added a few more. Recently, I went out, asked 3 realtors in town, give me 2 cities that you would compare us to. One of them gave me 3 cities, but 2 of them said Boone, 2 said Spencer, 1 said Grinnell, and 2 of them said Pella. So I have all of those communities on the list. And again, generally, I think when you see the cities that are seeing growth of several hundred homes or more, they have more multifamily. Now, multifamily does not mean per se apartments. What it means is it can be attached, it can be townhomes, it can be condominium, owner-occupied product. But again, you get a lower price point. And I showed this previously, and last year, this was the same developer, same product in Ankeny was $194,818 in Ankeny. Right now, you can buy this product in West Des Moines from $209,000 to $224,000. And my point being, again, you talk about affordability. This is owner-occupied product, but it's attached. And I think home ownership is good for a community. But if you want price points, I mean, we look at the cost of the sewer project tonight. We're seeing infrastructure costs that are just really driving a lot of the affordability question, the lot price question. Well, density, more units per acre will help address that. I mean, this product, again, is about a 24-foot wide unit, several units attached. You get smaller street frontages, which allows you to have a lower price point.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
So at this price point, did you investigate or are you familiar with what, if any, West Des Moines city government's role was in that to get to that price point, or was that standalone?
I can't answer West Des Moines. I know Ankeny because I talked to someone about that, and really not a lot of intervention, no Tiff. What I would say is generally in your metro areas, there's a mix, and I'll get into it a little bit, but there's not a lot of communities that are putting dollars into it in the metro areas.
Okay.
What I would tell you in outstate areas, you're seeing a lot of communities that are putting investment, city dollars into it. So I think it kind of depends where you're at.
Mike, do you know if those are sprinklered or not?
I can't answer that question. Now, interesting enough, on that point, we had a discussion. We had a builder that built a 4-plex recently. It's actually under construction now. And he has experience in the metro area of building the product that he built in Carroll. And our first thing was, you got to put fire suppression in it. And his comment was, no, I don't. State code doesn't require me to do that. And we went round and round with him and actually had conversations with the state. And there is a alternative method that would allow you to do firewall separation, which he's doing, that does not require sprinkling. And so we have an example. And so I think sometimes when you get those people that push you, we went back to the state and they allowed us to do that. But it was a lot of conversation in that. So
You could give me that information.
we can get you that information, yes. And I think it's a learning experience for us too, because again, when we looked at the building code that the state provides, it talks about sprinkling. And then as we had the conversation, well, there's this addendum, we don't really send it out to people. I mean, that's literally was the conversation. We don't send it out to people, but here it is. And that does allow firewall separation as an alternative to sprinkling. Now, that it's expensive to do. It's more than just your traditional firewall that you do in a multifamily setting. But there is an alternative out there. And we can get that to you. So to your question kind of on incentives and what they do, and I'm going to talk broadly of what can be done and what Carroll has done in the past. So there's really kind of two big buckets. There's TIF, tax increment financing, and really this is a way to fund infrastructure, your roads, water, sewer. And so when a development gets built, you can then have those property taxes that are being generated by that neighborhood then go back and pay for the infrastructure that's put in. Traditionally in Carroll, just for everyone's information, when a new neighborhood gets built, the developer upfronts the infrastructure costs. That's part of the lot price. And then it just causes the lots then pay for themselves. Through TIF then, because that lot comes online, taxes are being generated, we capture that, and then we will then put that in infrastructure costs. Sometimes that is being done by the developer. Some communities, Carroll has not historically done that. The city themselves are building the infrastructure and then having a lower lot price. I can tell you there's 3 communities in Carroll County that does it that approach versus the developer approach. You have tax abatement is another option. There's different schedules. The one that residential that we've had a lot of discussion about is 100% for 5 years in the first $75,000 of value. There's also different schedules for multifamily. There's different schedules for if you have blight, low to moderate income housing, or historic properties. You can do up to 100% for 10 years is another option. The cautionary note is TIF and abatement don't work together, because if you're trying to fund your infrastructure and you're using TIF to do that and you abate taxes, then you're not going to get TIF dollars to be able to put in the infrastructure. So you have to be very careful and mindful of how you put those two tools together. You can use them together, but you have to be mindful of the impact if you do use them together. Tax abatement, the city of Carroll adopted it in 2019. Again, it's the 100% tax abatement on the first $75,000 of actual value for 5 years. We first created it in an area really from 18th to Grant down to the river, Highway 71 general boundaries. We put that into effect. Just for informational, what that abatement provides you on $75,000 over 5 years, that's about $5,380 or $5,358.89 over 5 years. That's assuming current rollback, current levy rate, but that changes, so that fluctuates. It wouldn't be an exact dollar. When this was put in, didn't really get what the council didn't achieve what the council was seeking to do. So last year, the city did expand it citywide. And to date, we have about 10 property owners that have benefited primarily over the original one, because we haven't seen any projects come through yet since it was just last year. A lot of metro cities don't offer abatement. This is a list of those, so like the Ankeny, West Des Moines, they don't offer abatement, would be examples that on that townhome that we previously discussed. A lot of metro cities do offer abatement, and some do the standard, which I've previously talked about. Some kind of offer a hybrid of what you do, and I kind of highlighted in yellow the ones that kind of offer above and beyond. And one of them in here, Carlisle is 100% for 5 years on new construction. So you can do a lot. Now, if you do more than the standard 100% for 5 years on the first $75,000 of value, you do have to declare most likely your community blighted. But there are communities in Carroll County that have done that. And it really isn't a report that not a lot of people see, but it's a step you'd have to take if you want to offer more than what the standard abatement is in state code. Adele, we talked about this previously. Adele offered 100% for 7 years. They started it a number of years ago, but then they really had a lot of, Adele's a good case study of what can happen with abatement and really kind of pressures that can present of a quick growth. Now, clearly, I think Adel has kind of that influence of the Des Moines Metro, but because of the pressure, they actually made a decision in 2018 to end abatement. So they said if you started the project in 2018 and completed it by 2019, you would still get the 100% for 7 years. Projects built in 2019 through 2020, there'd be a phased abatement, and then they ended abatement for any project started in 2021. So that's why they were the no abatement community on that first list. And previously, when I showed this, I just updated this last week through 2020, was they seen a big drop off in the number of building permits. Now, 2021, they actually talked to the city manager down there. They were quite surprised. They did not think, they thought it would stay low, but they seen a big uptake in the number of housing units, and this was with no abatement. So it can be done. And I think one of the pressures Adel had, again, I think you have to have a clear end game in mind, what you're trying to do. I think that's really important. How are you going to target that incentive? But what they said was you really need to also have a conversation with the school district. If you start seeing a lot of growth, can they accommodate it? Because that's what really became an issue for Adel. When you have multiple grades starting to be in trailers to learn, that's not a good thing. So that was a problem, and that's why they kind of ratcheted it back. So we talked about TIF and abatement, and I'm going to get into a little bit more of abatement a little bit here, but there's also other, I would say, non-traditional direct city incentives. There's a city in Iowa that actually provides some direct incentives. We'll give you cash. We'll kind of do some subsidies for forgivable loans. So there's different ways to do that. Orange City ran into an issue where they weren't seeing any spec houses being built, and there was a lot of fear by builders. If we built it, will they buy it? So Orange City, through the city and their development corporation, really said if you build a spec home and it does not sell in the first 6 months, we'll cover your construction loan interest payments for months 7 through 12. The sale price had to be under $250,000. To date, this is what really helped Orange City spark some development. And to date, they've had to pay no interest on any of those loans. In fact, they've all been sold prior to completion of construction. Private welcome packages has been one thing. Newton has done that to a lot of success, really, through city and private businesses getting together and putting a package together. And certainly there's other ideas, and I think if they're out there, we'd love to hear it. But the Newton package, really, if you built a home that was more than $180,000, they offered you a $10,000 cash incentive that came from the city to build your house. And then additionally, there was a private get to know Newton welcome package that included stuff like there was a $200 gift card from Hy-Vee. There was some golf course memberships. There was just there was a get your internet free for 1 year if you have a 2-year contract type arrangement. So it was really worthwhile when you looked at what was being offered in that package. So it wasn't just the public sector that was doing that, but the private sector also stepping up to provide some incentives. I don't know how you did a $100,000 home, but they did offer abatement if you were under $100,000. But if you were above $100,000, Newton didn't offer any tax abatement. So that was kind of the trade-off of that $10,000 cash incentive versus tax and abatement. And, you look at Newton, through a tax abatement scenario, what you could get versus really what they did provide. And it was quite a lot less expensive than 100% tax abatement. And it's just one way that they were able to do it. Tax abatement, this is kind of the Carroll way right now of how we do tax abatement, but it's 100% on the first 5 years on $75,000. That gives you $4,892 in total tax abatement over 5 years. So these are different value homes, and with that abatement, each of these there's dollars still coming to each jurisdiction, and you can see those. So I think that's a positive thing. Of you're getting 5 years, but there are still tax revenues that are coming in. If you offered 100% tax abatement, jurisdictions are not getting any benefit. And then this is really what the homeowner would save. Now, I think there was a lot of questions we've had historically at the city of, if you're building a $650,000 home, do you really need a tax abatement of 100% for 7 years at $47,000 benefit? And so there, one example is, well, what if you do a graduated? And this is the thing is with abatement, if you go down the route of saying we're going to offer more than the standard, you can do any mixture that you want. So if you want to do less than 100%, you can do that. And so here's an example of, well, what if you offer 100% on the first 250,000, 100% on the next 250,000, and no benefit over $500,000. So these first homes that are under 250,000, they still get a pretty substantial benefit. The homes that are between that 250 to 500,000. By the way, so no one's asked me yet why $324,714. That was our average home value between 2016 and 2020. So that's why we picked that number to kind of show the impact of what an average home would have received. But now the $600,000 home, again, we're having that cutoff. There's still tax dollars going back during that abatement period. Does that make sense? Any questions up to this point? So I'm going to switch gear now off of abatement to Tiff. We've done a few tax increment financing projects. One is Rolling Hill South condos. This is a 6-duplex, 12-unit condominium project. This was a pay-as-you-go Tiff rebate. So the developer put in the infrastructure. We rebated or will potentially rebate. We haven't rebated anything up to this point, up to $72,000 or $6,000 per housing unit. This is owner occupied. And this is being used as a match for the workforce tax credit program. So it's one. Now, what do I mean by pay as you go? Developer puts in the infrastructure. They take up all the risk. If the development doesn't go anywhere, the city's not out any money if the property values don't increase to create that increment that we can rebate. But I think this project's well under the way. The pro forma, they should receive their full rebate. Now there's some issues we have to work through with the developer, but we're in good shape, I believe, overall. But pay as you go, again, no risk on the city. This was another TIF project we approved. Now, this project's not moving forward, but I just provided as an example of what the city's approved in the past. This was Carroll Park Apartments. Development had duplexes, 16 units on the north, 2 apartment buildings with a total of 60 apartment units on the south. As I said, this project's not moving forward. It was approved in 2018. This required an investment of over $10 million by the developer. And again, this would have been a pay-as-you-go TIF project. Developer puts on all the infrastructure, meets all the requirements, and then they could have gotten a rebate. In this case, up to $600,000 or $8,333 per unit.
Take a breath, huh?
Yeah.
Good question.
Now, this is a development. This is out of the city of Pella called Prairie Ridge. And this is a case of the governmental unit actually took up all the risk. So private developer owned the land, came to the city, we want to develop it. Marion County actually took out a urban renewal plan and bonds and debt to put in the infrastructure. Now, this is a 63-unit single-family development with 45 owner-occupied townhomes. The projected value of this development is $31.6 million of new valuation. Overall, the infrastructure cost is $5.6 million. The county, Marion County, is actually assisting. They put in $4.7 million. The city of Pella is covering the balance of that. Now, why the county would be the question you want to ask, because it's kind of an interesting dynamic there. Marion County also has another project in Knoxville that will have a low to moderate income housing component to it. And by them participating in this project and doing the urban renewal, they are going to generate about $1.6 million in tax increment financing that can be used in other projects within the entire county versus just the city of Pella. And so they're really going to put that in Knoxville, which is also in Marion County. And so they allowed them the flexibility of putting that in other communities within their county. But, the city could undertake this. And again, this particular project was not a city-owned land. This was the city and county coming together with a developer to do it. Now, the good news is this opened up about a year and a half ago for development, and I believe they're down to like 10 lots left to be built on. This was highly successful, and again, also allowed them to get the price point down. It also allowed them to market the lots to developers that were willing to come into the community, that were new to Pella, to mitigate some of that risk of coming into a new community. And they've seen it as, again, some of the issues we have. There's not the builders that are willing to come to Carroll. So it's one of those ways that they were able to mitigate the risk and allow them to get new developers, new builders, not developers, new builders interested in the community. So again, I guess any questions on that before I go forward? It's a unique concept. Yes.
I guess I have a question. You said 2021, the multifamily was up. Is that the lot that was sold for $1,000? Is that part of it?
It was a part of it, yes. Most of that was, so we actually had 16 units in 2021 that I would consider multifamily. 4 of those would be that lot. The other 12 would be duplexes that were built in the city, all owner occupied.
And I just want to point out how much the city lost on that deal. Because there was developers that would have paid more for that, or landowners next to that would have paid more for that lot than what it sold for. The next question I have, American Home Shield. What's the plan for that building? And I know I lost 2 tenants out of that when they decided to have their employees work from home. I had both of them moved out of the city of Carroll because they could. So what's the plan for, I guess, for that building, first of all?
Well, I mean, American Home Shields owns the building. They're operating it. Now, I know there's not, it's not, definitely not staffed where it was pre-pandemic.
There's no
But-
cars there.
But, well, there are few.
Apparently,
Question for American Home Shield. I mean, as long as they're the owners of it, they control their own property.
okay. So my question is, as far as the development, I mean, I know how many apartments I have open. And based on what I'm seeing, I mean, we're talking about needing growth. I guess I want to know where, because what's the net businesses that have been added for Carroll and how many employees over the last year or projected for the next year? Because I know after the pandemic, it has changed a lot of things. And I know a lot of that is the costs that we're seeing are because of the pandemic. And I do believe that eventually they will go down, because that, or we're just going to go through a severe depression. But I guess I want to know what's coming to Carroll that's going to support adding, because I haven't seen any jobs.
Well, interesting enough, this last week I had a conversation with Pella. Our last official statement for our debt issuance had Pella at 433 employees. They're currently over 600 employees. I talk to employers throughout the community. They're adding people. So while we may not have seen a new physical building be constructed in Carroll, our employers are hiring and they're growing. And I think that's one thing about economic development that we lose sight of sometimes is we always look for that next building to get built, but our best economic development is always our existing employers and having them grow and succeed. And I know the plant manager wanted to be here this evening from Pella. They are recruiting people all the time. They're making job offers. And I shouldn't pick on Pella in this because I'm hearing this from a number of employers in town where they extend job offers. The job offers are accepted and ultimately get turned down in the end by the employee because they can't find housing. And some of these positions are not even at Pella, some of these positions are high level positions that pay very, very well that they cannot find housing. And so this isn't just an issue of affordable housing. This is an issue, again, at all levels. Again, if you go back and look at what the housing that's available in the city of Carroll, your most expensive house today that's on the real estate is $165,000. And when your business trying to, I talked to a business here recently, they're trying to hire a network specialist at six-figure salary. They don't want to live in a $165,000 home.
Well, I would agree that if you said the average house was 324,000, that's, yeah.
Yeah. So our issue is not, you're
It's
never
not
going
the
to,
lower income, it's the higher income, but those are fewer and far between. When you go through the mall, how many businesses are open or partial hours? I guess I just don't see it. I guess I want to know net. What's the net add? Pella might be doing good because I know they're working a lot of OT, but there's a lot of other businesses that are gone or don't have their employees here.
yep. And again, from all indications, the net number of jobs in Carroll are up. Our unemployment it rivals pre-pandemic numbers right now.
I
Carroll,
don't see the people applying for apartments. Let's just put it that way.
understand.
Margaret, I would just, your points are well taken and I would agree with them. The only thing that I would add is I had a conversation with 2 weeks ago on one of my Fridays, a 40-year, when the foundation was built at Pella, been there from day one. And he said the saddest thing for him to witness, and I don't know, can we share what Pella's employment is now? It's staggering. It's well over what I even thought that it was. All three shifts now are really full and they're still looking for people because they become what I was told the number one window provider in the world now. And he said the saddest thing for him to witness, and this is a Carroll homeboy, been here from day one. And he said the saddest thing for him to witness is at the end of the shift, the cars streaming out of town for people that can't live here because there's no place for them. Now, whether or not they looked you guys up or not, I can't speak to that, but it's at the end of the shift, they're all heading east or west or north or south. And that is, and to the converse of that, I know that the hospital is going to be replacing, Ed here, over the course of this summer. And this is someone who is going to make, a pretty doggone good salary, I propose. And I don't think they're going to be interested in a $165,000 house. And so to Mike's point, we need housing choices out there from top to bottom, multi, single, duplex, right now we just need roofs. And
Again, we can spend time and talk about the whole Carroll County housing study that was done. And I think it to some in the community, they really wanted to point on, we don't need affordable housing. We don't want this housing study. What it really talked about and it really showed was we need housing. In fact, probably more acutely at the higher end, but we need it at the low end. We need it at the very low end, the low end, the medium, and the high end. We need a spectrum of housing in the city.
And I can follow up with you too, Margaret. Be glad to, want to.
Let's use the Hegre houses as a good example. There's 6 of them east of the high school. That opened up 5 houses for people to move into in our community. And Glenn was one of them. But we had one towner, I believe, move into one of them. But the other 5 are locals that gave up their bigger houses and came to, I think they're what, 279? And so
Yeah.
look what that helped do, just in those 6.
There's a
6
substantial market for those that want to downsize.
Right.
You know, and that's going to open up homes too. So anyways, to Mike's point.
Yeah, and again, I go, if we look at the, this townhome product, I think one of the things about the generationally that's changed is, again, I think you have the empty nesters. Now, they don't want a 2-story product, but the empty nesters, they want maintenance-free condominium. Someone's going to come mow my own grass because I don't want to do it anymore, but I want the grass. And then you look at the millennial generation and Generation Z, frankly, they don't know how to run a hammer. And, so they want something like this, again, that is, maintenance free. And so that's, I think, the dilemma. And I think that's why you see communities that are building a lot of this product. They're getting the growth in their communities. So
it's important for us to have, even in rental, for us to have a broad variety. We hire people from out of town. We have spent, and when I moved here, I had to go sit in Tom Twitt Funeral's home until he came back from a funeral so I could rent an apartment because there was nothing for me to move to town. That's been 30 years ago. But planners we bring to town, same thing. We have to call around to landowners that we know to try to find an apartment. And I know that it's situational for what's open this month versus what might be open a year from now. So we have to figure out how we're going to have a wider stock so that we know that we have enough churn that we can answer people. Because that's how I've housed people that we brought in from out of town. We call around to people that we know, trying to reserve apartments for them, and have been able to do that. But it's not the paper and it's not signs that we're in the yard. And I know that that's a specific point in time, but that's happened probably for the last 4 people that we've hired. And it also depends on what the quality of is. We're hiring a lot of kids. I remember my college apartment, it was gross. So you could kind of move into a gross thing maybe when you get here. Not that we have that, but we have, you look at some of the college housing they have now, it's nice and it's interesting housing, and we're trying to attract young professionals to come to the community. We need to have a good mix. Some will not care that it is next to a coffee shop or that they're above a bar or that they've got washer dryer inside the apartment, but others are going to care about that, and they have choices. They can come and work for us, or they can go live in Des Moines or Chicago. And it's difficult as an employer to be able to attract people with the current housing mix that we have.
Chase?
Mark, do you by chance know on the housing study, which also was kind of there was an employment part of that as far as the unemployment numbers. Did that encompass succession planning for older business owners who are trying to sell their practices, sell their businesses to the next person?
I don't think the housing study didn't do that kind of dive.
But I guess, was there an ancillary study done with employment that detailed that? Do you know?
Not that I'm aware of.
And this is purely anecdotal, but I think it reaffirmed the housing study reaffirmed what I know, which is I talk to business owners all the time, and I haven't found a single one in the last 6 months who said they wouldn't hire somebody if they found a quality individual. They hire them like that.
Oh yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily speak to what kind of housing we need or not. But at the end of the day, people in this town want to hire good people, and it's hard to find good people.
Yep.
I wanted to share one thing because it triggered when you were talking, Rick, about kind of knowing things. Don Meyer, the city administrator in Manning, I love her quote. It was in the Des Moines Register. Most real estate transactions happen at the funeral home. I mean, that just tells you about how tight, and we're not alone in this issue. Every community is really facing it in our region. It's just how aggressive do you want to get? And we have historically have been in a position where we haven't had to be very aggressive. I would tell you that I would tell you I've subscribed. I mean, you made the comment of what are other communities doing in the metro? And, I worked 6 years in Ankeny. I remember 2005, which was the largest building year in the Des Moines metro. I was in Ankeny then. It was crazy to see how quickly our community built. And there was no incentives. I mean, the city of Ankeny did not provide $1 in abatement, TIF, or otherwise for residential development. So for me to sit here and say, let's do residential incentives, it's a little foreign to me, to be honest. But I don't know how we get ourselves out of this if we don't start getting more aggressive about it. Because I'm telling you, everyone else is doing it in our region. I mean, people ask me, well, how is Glidden building $10,000 lots? Well, Glidden is doing tax increment financing, and they're buying down the lot price and subsidizing it. It's not because they can do it any cheaper for infrastructure. Concrete's not cheaper in Glidden. Pipes are not cheaper in Glidden. It's just they are putting in dollars. And if you think about it, through tax increment financing, you're talking about a scenario where you're not getting any taxes or you're getting some taxes by having bare ground, but you're not getting large dollars. Once that investment's made, you're getting value. You're taking that increased value for a period of time, and you're paying off the infrastructure cost. So that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about taking general taxpayer dollars that are existing and paying for it, but reinvesting the TIF to make that growth happen. And, I don't know how else we're going to do it. I mean, the cost of infrastructure, otherwise all the lots we're going to have in Carroll are going to be $60,000 to $70,000 because that's what the cost of the infrastructure is. Am I wrong, Mark, or Matt? I mean, infrastructure is expensive.
And again, for a $324,000 house, that kind of fits. But
Yeah, when you look at.
but for a $200,000 house, that's kind of a
It
stretch.
doesn't work, yeah. When
Doesn't
you look
work.
at ratios, when we build, I always look at 10 to 15% as the cost of the lot as part of the house. Okay, so 15% on a $300,000 house, $45,000 lot, probably doable. But when you get down to that $200,000 house price range,
Mhm.
right now with boards, man, you want 2x3 walls and no windows?
Yeah.
What do you want? Because the boards are probably pushing more than anything right now, so.
And as a percentage, Matt, that really hasn't changed much over time, has
Not
it?
changed in the last 30 years since I've been building.
Okay. It's just exponentially everything
It's
else.
all relationship.
Yeah. Well, I hope if anything that, that Mike's and what do you do in your spare time, right? Thank you. Are you at kind of?
Well, the only
And if
thing I
you
was
got a
going to
few
really
more,
wrap
but-
up was, again, you have builder capacity. Manning, we haven't talked about it tonight, but Manning did a unique project where they actually worked with a company called American Classic Homes. And actually, they had a conversation with their builders saying, hey, we got people that want houses. Can you do it? And they didn't have the capacity. And so they worked with American Classic Homes out of Ankeny. And they said, if you can get us 5 new housing starts, we'll come build those 5 houses. They did, and they built the 5 houses. And I noticed our builders, our local plumbers maybe didn't do the work. I also look at it as I have another family there that can be employed in the community. There's an HVAC that's going to fail at some point, is going to get replaced, and it's not going to be a Des Moines contractor that's going to come do it. But is that a way? Do you look to partner? COVID, I don't think it's an issue anymore. I should have deleted that out of the slide from a year ago. But as Matt said, it's rising building costs. We've talked about that tonight in a couple different ways. It's a problem. But I think, what I would leave the discussion is, what's our end game? Where does the council want to go? How many houses do we want? we've seen the study suggests we need to be, 30 to 45 houses a year,
Units.
units. Yep, per year. How do we get there? What's the price point we want to hit? And that then starts to play into that development incentive of what does it take to get developers to be encouraged to do it? Because for the developer, it's all about risk. How do you mitigate their risk so they're willing to make the investment in your community? I mean, in the end, I think that's what we're really talking about. What's the housing mix? And again, then, what is the incentive that we give to encourage that mix? And then how quickly do you want to grow? So I think those are, to me, some of the frame questions we need to ask ourselves.
Well, thank you for putting this together, Mike. If anything, at the end of today, at least, I think what you've demonstrated, by some of those earlier slides, is that, you use the term aggressive, and the city is already offering incentives that it didn't do just within, the past couple of years. And so we're being aggressive, but aggressive is a relative term. And so is it aggressive enough? And so that's for the council and leadership to consider, what's going to, move the meter further, because we're seeing a little bit of some housing starts this year, but it's certainly well away from that 39 that's suggested. So thanks for putting that together. I'll open it up for council comments if anybody has anything, and then we'll open it up, to the public here as well. But again, I just think that it was important to demonstrate that at least the city is, I've had lots of phone calls, emails, and, the city's not doing enough. Well, maybe an education process is we've already got 2 pretty decent tools right now that are being employed, but is it enough? And so I'll end with that and open it up to the council.
Well, I heard it on today's news. Maybe somebody can help. It was on, and I'm looking at Carroll Broadcasting. It doesn't have it, but one of the local towns around here, and I want to think it's Lake City, that they're acquiring properties and they're giving that lot away to the potential, homeowner. And it's not on here, so I can't verify it was Lake City. If anybody heard that?
Might be Jefferson.
What's it?
It might be Jefferson.
Okay. I can't remember the town, but
Is it? I think it's.
Is there casino money involved?
No, I think it's just, they're picking up the lots.
and then they're giving it away to the potential home. Yeah, that's what I heard.
That's not uncommon where cities, they'll pick up dilapidated properties, do the demolition work, and virtually give the lots away.
That's how we built the units in Glidden. That's how we built the units in Wall Lake. We're building 4 houses in Panora. Look, those communities all donated those lots for those to be built. Now, those are all low income housing units. That's part of the deal. But that's, Manila has lots that they're giving away, and some of the communities going through nuisance abatement, and they'll have infill, which has its own challenges. Is the lot buildable? Is it wide enough that you can put something on it? And then if you are going to give that away and build a lot, are you going to put a $250,000 house in amongst a nest of $50,000 houses? But sometimes it works out well.
And essentially, that's what happened at the City Hotel. In essence. Any other comments or thoughts, you all?
Well, as I look through here, you've got 68 available lots, but they're price ranged. They're variable. If you do a separate subdivision like you showed with Pella and do something where you use TIF money for the infrastructure, drop the price on the lots, what does that do for the 68 available lots that are out there other than cut their legs out from underneath them? So could we start something, whether it be tax abatement currently? Just ideas, throw something together, talk about a mix.
So we do tax abatement now.
Yeah, up to the 75,000.
Yep. So we could increase that. I think, I think one of the questions, and it's a good point because I should have brought it up. I agree that whatever we do, as we think about, do we want to increase lot inventory? Okay. Not sure we have to increase lot inventory per se, but eventually I think that next development, it's going to be a fair question out there how we deal with it. I think we have to look at those existing lots and how do we do something for them. So when you go back and look at like Newton and what they did, and we may have to get even more aggressive with the existing lots, but if you recall, they were giving, basically, if you build a house of $180,000 or more, they were giving $10,000 cash from the city. And if you built between $100,000 and $179,999, that's excluding land, excuse me, they got $5,000. I'm not sure how could you build a $100,000 house, any builder out there? I don't know how they're doing that.
No.
That's
Maybe
the
a
incentive, the
garage.
way they have it set up.
You can, but there's no
Two-car
roof.
garage.
Yeah, there's no law.
Tree house.
That's the dog house, right?
Yeah.
I went to the League of City
She
meeting.
shed.
So to this League of City meeting the other night, and they were talking about this. There's a company in Grettinger that's building just on a slab, no basement, and the cheapest they can build them is $150,000. And they're pretty well prefab. And so anything like a $200,000 low income house, they said does not exist anymore.
Yeah, weren't we just talking about Habitat homes, and did you
If
say
you want a
$1.50
basement on a
for
lot,
that?
if you want a basement on a lot, you're not going to get it for 200. This thing is 150, and it's only 900 square feet with no basements.
Yeah.
And it's prefab.
Kyle, you've had a lot of conversations. Do you have anything?
Yeah,
to-
I've experienced a couple of things probably last 2 weeks. One of them was an older lady who was selling her house, who wanted just an entry level place to live, and I had a duplex open. Unfortunately, it was the wrong duplex, so it didn't work for her. But that was another example of a house coming open that currently was not on the market. As a 30-year-old person, I look at some of the prices of the lots, and for me, it kind of scares me away from, you spend $50,000 or $60,000 on just a lot before you spend a couple $100,000 on a house. And I've got a friend who, Mike said it, the price in Glidden or Breda is no different than Carroll, but the price point of the lot, I think, is what gets people. I think if we had lots work with the developers who have lots available to be able to bring those price points down, I think that would help.
Very good. Anybody else?
Well, I agree with Kyle on the lot price, but with tax abatement, and you look at the overall picture, whether it be 5 years or 10 years, what you recoup from the tax abatement basically pays for your lot.
Yeah.
To people understand that, put apples to apples and compare it, that if I'm getting tax abatement and it's saving me, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year, or over the course of the 5 years, well, you're getting your lot for free. But the only way to do that is to start the tax abatement, whether it be 100% for 5 years, 100% for 10 years prorated, 80.
Now, the cautionary
60.
note I would tell you is I know 2 communities in Carroll County that are offering low lot prices and 100% tax abatement today.
I'm just throwing it out. We got
I
to
know.
start somewhere. So
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's part of the dynamic is communities are getting so aggressive. Now I'm not trying to say that it's not a good approach. It's just that's what we're up against.
I think we're competing with the other 12 communities. Certainly 5 of them.
We are.
Yeah, I don't think people care about driving 15, 20 minutes to Carroll, versus having the same thing here. I think we see it more and more.
Yeah. That's was my point from Margaret is, they're willing to drive, into town. And Matt, I'm going to ask you a question. You had something you were going to share, but do you feel, to Tom's point, do you feel that we're not doing what we should be doing in terms of selling our current incentive structure well enough to you guys or to the ultimate buyer? Can you give me an opinion on that. Can we be doing a better job? And if so, what would we do?
I don't know if it's measurable enough, number one. The incentive up to 75,000 abatement, $5,000, you're seeing 250, 350, 450, 550, 850, 1,050,000 houses. 5,000 is not really deterring them or making them move ahead. I think the biggest thing is the number of builders in the market to be able to do the work. Interesting dynamic on lot prices, and this is a dynamic in appraisals, and I think Mike can probably answer to it also. But when you look at the communities, and I actually had a house for sale in another small community outside of Carroll, and this is a person that bought a lot for $10,000. And I went to him and I said, if that house were in Carroll, it would have sold for 40 or 50,000 more than it did in the community he was in. And we were unable to sell it at the time. And this has been a few years back, but he saved at the time probably 15,000 on his lot, but gave up the potential of 50,000 in gain. So part of our issue is valuations within Carroll. Carrolls are very strong. So it maintains the valuations of houses for property tax basis, which is very favorable for homeowners. Another element is the hardest development that we've ever had to deal with is Oak Park. Okay, Oak Park was an affordable housing development that was put in place back in the, I want to say, early to mid 90s. We ended up buying all the remaining lots from the developer, and we worked through building out those lots, with the incentive of just getting rid of the lots. And it took, I want to even say 20 years to move so many lots. The other side of the equation is Timber Creek East, and Timber Creek East has how many lots left, Mike? I don't even know, 13 or something like that, or on your list or something like that. That was
16,
17,
that was the
yeah.
easiest development to sell out. Namely, it was the amenities, it was larger lots, it was the curving streets, it was things that, people wanted, and that was much easier to sell out than the smaller, more economical lots. I do believe it takes risk takers. That's the biggest thing here. And, who's going to step in and how are we going to step in, or where are we going to step in helping build those, I'm on a semi move up house. I'm not in that entry level house. Can I do it? I probably could, but I'm in the one that says, I need to have 3 bathrooms. I need to have 5 bedrooms or 4 bedrooms. I need to have 2x6 walls. This is what the market I've met with what we're doing. Can I build the more economical ones? I think so. I have to test it a little bit on some available land, but we have an interesting dynamic here, and as everybody does, and it's a challenge. It's a challenge for us. When I moved to Carroll back in 1992, there were 13 houses for sale, and 12 of those houses you wouldn't live in. They were worse than your apartment that you lived in when you were in college. So, it was the same dynamic at that point. And then the interest of the community and the focus of the community got on housing, and things worked out. We encourage people to do it. I do it daily. I encourage young men, build a spec house. I'll carry the lot, build a spec house. It's just right now the dynamic with pricing of materials and pricing of commodities and timing and getting of those commodities has a big detriment on the spec home building business right now. So that's
1985, it took me 6 months to find a house. I mean, the situation is the same. It just seems so much worse today.
Mark, I built.
Yeah,
I built a new home, and then I moved into it when I moved to Carroll. So.
And another thought that occurred to me too, as these other communities, strive to, subsidize or whatever, they're going to be competing here. If they're employers in Carroll, they're going to be competing with $4 and maybe $5 gasoline too, which is, kind of an
And it's okay to
unaccounted
have
for.
that housing out there too.
Absolutely.
It takes the pressure off the
Right.
road to some degree too.
Right.
I know I'm very proprietary. I don't want to lose a house buyer to another community, but you know what? They're Carroll County. We're all the same people. It's okay. It's okay to be in Glidden and Breda and Halbert, Templeton. You-
Not tonight. We want them in Carroll.
Thank you.
One night. Give me one night.
That's right, that sign says that too.
Yeah, we want them in Carroll. That's right. Yeah. Sorry, Halbert.
Kyle, I'm sorry, I may mention to Kyle, the same $70,000 lot down here in a Daniel Key is a $90,000 lot, so. They make a lot more money down there
Yeah.
and move them a lot faster.
You got anything to add, Marty?
No, I think
It's-
single family dwelling houses, you can't ignore that. It's worked for the last 50 years. In my opinion, if you sell a new house at $324,000, it's a trickle effect that opens up another house and possibly another house. And to me, that's a starter home. Somehow we lost the American dream of owning a new home. I have two daughters that don't listen to me once in a while. They want everything right now. And I don't know how to solve that problem, but I think the trickle effect of houses, every time a new house is built, you got two additional houses probably opening.
Do what I do, refer them to their mother. So you go down the hall.
Marty, do you have any spec homes going?
No, we stopped building them too. Labor force is one of them. Can't get subcontractors. is another one.
I can't get helpers.
That's true.
It's just not cost effective right now at this point.
Well, without going all night, does anybody have anything else they'd like to add or share, Kim?
Just one more, to help someone out like Marty, the city's gonna have to give, the $5,000 isn't gonna cut it. We all know that. What is the price the lot's gonna have to be, Marty, before someone's really gonna go after it? Is it 35,000, 40,000? We know the 70's not working. I know you have that in it, so I'm not, we understand that cost.
Kim, I don't think it's a lot price.
Not the cost?
No, I think it's a workforce builder element is what it is, And that's a risk taker, if you want to be a risk taker, go build a spec home.
So Manning did the thing with American Classic Homes. So if they came in and built, say, 5 or 6 homes, the lot price wouldn't have effect at all.
I don't think so, because the valuation of a house in Manning, say for instance, a 1,400 square foot ranch, 2-car garage, valuation in Manning might be 220, 230, and Carroll is going to be 300. So I think I got 80,000 of room in there, not only from an economics income perspective, but also a lot price differential. And I don't have that much more land in it than they do. So
The only comment I would make, though, I'm going to counter you a little bit, Matt, is,
I like the answer.
yeah, is, you look at what Pella did in this Prairie Ridge, and the reality was they brought the lot price down, which allowed other developers to become interested that had never built in the Pella community, and they bought up 5-6 lots and then went and built on those lots. So if you brought that lot price down, I would argue that, again, it's about managing that risk. If you can bring the risk down for the developer, where they see, even if I don't sell it right away, I'm going to be a little bit comfortable. But if I sell it right away, I'm going to be in a good position. I'm not saying Pella approach of the development. I'm just trying to argue, if you can get that lot price down, I think you would attract builders to the Carroll community, which addresses your workforce
The
issues.
density of that is, were they running 3 to the acre or 4 to the acre?
I don't know that. I can find that
That's
out.
all part of it too, current pricing of lots and development costs, I'm looking at numbers right now on the next phase and some other areas, and it's amazing the dollars. Well, you're seeing it on running some services out east of Carroll. That's the same thing that's hitting us, because the cost of the land is not the big piece of this element. It's all the street, sewer, water. And I'd be curious on their density, because, if it's 4 versus 3 versus 2, Timber Creek is 2 to the acre. Oak Park is 4 to the acre. Rolling Hills South is 3 to the acre. You're probably 2.5 or 3 to the acre up in Northridge. So if I can squeeze 4 lots out of, say, 50,000 of costs, guess what? It's more than 50.
I agree. I mean, the density needs to be a part of it. And, it's probably looking at development a different way other than grid development like Oak Park was, doing something that provides some relief that people feel like, hey, this is going to be a safer community because it's not just 90 down the thoroughfare. Makes a difference too.
Creek East was a good idea.
We won't go down
We
that
won't
path
charge you for
today.
that. It's not tonight.
We won't go down that path.
Yeah.
Any other comments before we close? Michael?
I think that you talk about the tax abatement that's currently in effect with the city is not strong enough. And I think it's to the wrong person. I think we have to incentivize builders. I don't need to sit here and talk about what Matt just said. I mean, the Gretmans and the Steffes have done a wonderful job since I've been here the last 30 years of providing housing. They're getting, older, if you will. I mean, I'm not trying to call them older, but, I've been here 30 years and they've been doing it. But their subcontractors are old, there are people retiring, the trades are not getting filled up with quality people or with people. Wyatt could hire 4 or 5 more probably. So I think we've got to incentivize the builder enough to what you say is lower the risk to entice somebody. And unfortunately, it might be an out-of-town builder. I like to keep everything in town. But it just might not happen to get us out of this, and so, I think that, Matt said it well. I know we're focusing on the city of Carroll tonight, but Carroll County's good people too.
Darn right.
When
I
Manning-
used to sit in that seat too.
When
so-
Manning did theirs, they had to have 5 homes before that guy would come in. So that happened, and they offered it again, but they only got 3. So the guy didn't come in to build them. So we're gonna be facing with that, what these builders are gonna ask for, how many lots.
I don't want us to lose sight of the fact too, that we also need multifamily. If you believe in multifamily rental, if you believe in the housing needs assessment, which we did not do, which is fine. You've got a company that has done a lot of these. If we believe in the results of that, we have hundreds of units across all income levels, including lower income levels. Those individuals are not going to afford single family new homes. And yes, they could buy into a unit that somebody else purchased a higher end home, but we're not talking about huge numbers that's going to make available. And if somebody comes in from out of town, that's awesome that they want to come in from out of town and build a new home, but that doesn't free up a unit that's within the community. And we've got to think about what those sales prices are, what our average wage is in Carroll, and what your general workforce individual is going to be able to afford in a bank loan, if the bank will make them a loan, if that house is going to appraise out at that number. I don't want you to lose sight of the people on the lower end of the spectrum that also need available quality housing that are filling a lot of the jobs in our community.
Yeah, point taken. Okay. Shall we draw it to a close?
We can draw it to a close, but what I would encourage you, everyone in the room, if you have thoughts, talking points, get with me. My next steps, unless I hear no, is we're going to bring some thoughts forward. I don't think it'll be in 2 weeks, but probably in 4 weeks on how we can move this. So if you have thoughts on how you want to approach that, otherwise, if we're going to start bringing some thoughts forward. We'll be counsel, we'll make some policy decisions on how to move forward, but I think that's where we're at, is we need to start moving forward, and we're going to bring some thoughts forward on that.
Yeah.
I think we need to hear from a lot of builders and realtors. Have them during this period come forward to either council members or to the administration. The people that are in the business got to speak up how to help us.
Or are they willing to help us? Or can they help us?
It's a tough problem. Yeah, it's not a.
Like I said, the resources for help is slim, and not every builder is gonna say, yeah, I'll build 3 or 4 for you. It'd be nice to extend that out to everybody before we go out of town and say,
I guess I was.
You willing to build or not?
Yeah, I was asking for more ideas for them, how they could help this whole organization.
I don't think we'll be stepping on their toes because they're all busy, as we all know. So it's not like they're not going to have any work to do if we brought somebody from.
But they're in the
outside.
business. They have more ideas than,
Right.
like I
And you're right. They need to come to you folks and
yeah.
and give us their thoughts.
Okay. Well, thank you all for being here tonight. Appreciate everything. And remember the voicemail and email and phones, cell phones are open. So glad to hear from any of you, all of you on anything regarding housing or anything else. With that, we are in order for a motion to adjourn. Moved? Seconded. Roll call.
Seaman,
Yes.
Shrek, Bauer,
Yes.
Base, Dirks,
Yes.
Bornero. We are adjourned.
Thank you.